Hi everyone, I'm Mark Leeming from the 1 Minute Preacher. I hope your day is going well. Now, 2 days ago, October 31st, marked the 500th anniversary of the Reformation, when the Protestant Church began. It happened because a young German monk by the name of Martin Luther on October 31st, 1517, nailed a list of 95 things that he thought the church was in error for on the door of All Saints Church in Wittenberg, Germany. Now, I've already done 2 videos on this subject, coming at it from 2 different angles, one on YouTube and one on Facebook. But in this video, I want to focus in upon probably what was Luther's main contribution to the rest of us today, to Christianity. And that was his realization of justification by faith, that we are made right with God through faith in what Jesus did by dying on the cross for our sins. That we are never good enough for God. We can never do enough good things to earn our way to heaven. We are not good enough for God, but God has made us good enough for Him. Spot the difference? Now, as I said, he was a monk, and he was a very zealous monk at that. He said of himself that if ever there was a monk who made his way to heaven through his monkery, it was I, Luther said. Well, no matter, though, how hard Luther tried, no matter how many hours he spent in confession, he always felt that he was not right with God until one day he was reading Paul's letter to the Romans. Now, it wasn't the first time he had read Romans, but this was the first time that the lights came on and he understood what Paul was getting at when he was talking about justification through faith, of being made right with God through faith. That on the cross, Jesus bore the penalty of our sin. He took upon himself our garbage, our sin, and in return, he gave us his righteousness. He gave us a new heart, a new status before God. Now, you would think that in explaining this to the rest of the world, that Luther would use the book of Romans to teach from. And he did, but his main source comes from a source that you would least expect. It's found in the Old Testament, in the book called the Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 16. My beloved is mine, and I am his. To illustrate this, he uses this analogy, this parable of a promiscuous woman, a woman who slept around a lot. At the factory, we would call such a woman by different names, but my wife won't permit me to use those terms on this video. But anyway, she was a promiscuous woman. She slept around, and she was a rough diamond. She lacked social skills and manners. But one day, the king came to the village and asked her to marry him, and she became queen. Now, do you think she deserved to become queen? Did she even have a drop of royal blood in her? Did she have what it took in her character to become queen? Well, no, of course not. The only reason why she became queen was because of the king. Luther said that's the illustration of the sinner coming to God, that the sinner can't make him or herself right before God. It has to come from God, and it came through God, through what Jesus did on the cross. Now, he didn't just stop there with that illustration, because he said that perfectly demonstrates the life of the Christian, does it not? When that woman became queen, do you think that she immediately behaved properly? She was a rough diamond. It would take time for her to put off old ways and put on new ways, to learn the ropes. And that's the experience of the Christian. We're not perfect. We don't behave perfectly when we become Christians. We're still rough diamonds. It takes time. It's called sanctification, to put off old ways and put on the new ways of the Spirit. And this goes on for our entire life. We're never the perfect Christian. We're perfect in our status, but in our hearts, in our characters, we're still the promiscuous woman. We're still sinners. But because of Jesus dying on the cross, not only did he take away our sin, but he also gave us his righteousness, his moral purity. My beloved is mine, and I am his.